sick and tired of the high costs and inefficiency plaguing our U.S. healthcare system? Do you feel like you're navigating a maze when dealing with insurance companies, only to end up paying a fortune for basic medical services? Then this Broken Healthcare podcast is for you. So get ready to take control of your healthcare. Here's your host, Ray Kober.
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Broken Healthcare. My name is Ray Kober. I am your host, and I am thrilled to have with us today the great, the powerful Nelson Griswold, one of the OGs of the anti-status quo movement in healthcare, and so much more. Welcome, Nelson.
Ray, what a pleasure. Excited to have a conversation with you.
Honored to have you here. I want to start. So when we first started talking about this and having you on, I could not get the song out of my head. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. And you are the son of a preacher man, if I'm not mistaken, or am I wrong about that?
You are wrong. I am the father of a preacher man.
A father of a preacher man. That's so I got it backwards. So your son is out there preaching.
Right.
All right. So what made me think, I think, that you were the son of a preacher man is when I first met you back in 2018 at a voluntary benefits expo in Atlantic City, New Jersey. You were on stage, and I felt like you were preaching the gospel, and I was coming to Jesus, baby. Amen. Let me hear an amen.
And the people said, amen.
Yeah, no. So, I want to kind of, bookmark that. But, I talk to many people, and their path to a career in our business is never a straight line. And I would imagine that that's the case for you as well. I believe you have a background in politics, but where did it all start for you? What was your first gig? Were you one of those kids that had a paperboy route and you were always hustling, or did you kind of come into work in your later years? Where did it all start?
I had a father who was a serial entrepreneur. So probably my first job was started one Saturday morning. I was probably 12, maybe younger. And the phone rang about 9:10. And my mother answered the phone because my father was already off to work. He owned a restaurant at the time, very successful restaurant in Nashville. And my mother said, "Nelson, it's your daddy." I go to the phone, totally innocent at this moment. "Yes, sir." "Get your mom to bring you down here to the restaurant. The boy didn't show up to clean the toilets."
Woohoo!
So my first job I remember was cleaning the restrooms at a restaurant that on a Saturday morning after a Friday night. And you talk about the gang that couldn't shoot straight. It's an old movie title. There were a lot of folks having dinner and drinks at my father's place who went to the men's room and couldn't shoot straight. And it was, filthy. So that was my extremely real world introduction to the world of work. And then after that, I dug swimming pools for my dad's swimming pool company. I worked the register at my dad's convenience store, and I sold stereos. Well, I first worked in the warehouse and then got to the sales floor and sold stereos at my dad's stereo store.
Oh, wow. So your dad was a serial entrepreneur.
He was.
What kind of restaurant was it? Was it like, was it fast food? Was it high end? Was it middle of the road?
It was a higher end, Western themed steakhouse.
Oh, wow.
My dad's nickname was Nero, like the emperor, but nothing to do with the emperor. And he had He was from Nashville, from Franklin, Tennessee, south of Nashville. But he had gotten drafted into the Air Force. And as he tells it, he saw combat in the Battle of Texas. I think that combat might have been with some Army boys because he was Air Force. So he never made it out of Texas. But while he was in Texas, he picked up the habit of wearing cowboy boots, Western yoked cowboy shirts, and a cowboy hat. So when he came back to Nashville, he was dressed like that, which in Nashville, not many people, even in Nashville, the country music folks, a lot of them didn't dress like that. And so when he opened his restaurant, it was Nero's Cactus Canyon. And it was a steakhouse, very elegant, Western themed, but elegant. And he had one room that looked like a Vegas dining room. It was really, really elegant, called the Silver Slipper room. And of course, I worked there a lot. I was a host on the weekends and during the summer at lunch. I worked in the salad station. I made cornbread. The only thing I didn't do was serve. I was too young to serve. So that was my upbringing. I love the restaurant business. Would never be in it.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, I think it's got a sense of glamour, but there's really nothing glamorous about it.
It is hard.
It's hard work.
And
it's hard work.
My dad was very successful. The problem is you're there at 8 a.m. and you get home at 1 a.m.
Right.
On a Friday and Saturday night.
Right.
So I did not do that. My brother went into the restaurant business later in life. I told him not to. And he managed for about 7 years before he finally had to close. So, yeah, Ray, a wide range of work activities. And what I can tell you is digging swimming pools, digging holes in the ground for swimming pools quickly taught me that I did not want a menial labor job.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you had some blisters on them fingers.
Oh, it was brutal.
But
good,
you know what, though?
That good experience, but
yeah, teaches you work ethic, though, and I'm sure you carried that with you. I did a bunch of different, things growing up over time. My aunt had a bar restaurant. I worked there from an early age, helping out in the kitchen and doing whatever needed to be done, and just kind of through high school, pumped gas, waited tables, bartended, just a variety of things. But in our business, I think it really it's beneficial to have that experience because you can really relate to people. And at the end of the day, that's what the benefits business is all about. It's about being able to relate to people, talk to them on their level. And communication is key to what we do as advisors and consultants. And I think the same holds true with you. I mean, you're a great communicator, and I think a lot of those skills just, they translate well into what you do. So fast forward for me, how did you end up in the world of insurance, and what was in between kind of the early days and the insurance days?
So I worked in high school and college in stereo stores. I sold stereos, and really enjoyed that business. I love good sound systems, good music, et cetera. And that was fine. That got me through about half my college career. But I got really interested in politics and was running a political organization on campus. Then I got noticed because I kept bringing speakers in, and just this tiny little group that I put together. But I'd find people to give me some money to bring speakers in, and put on a couple of little events, and got noticed by a local political consultant who recruited me to leave school, which I left school early, and become a political consultant, work with him and his firm. And that was a great education. We were working with state legislative candidates down to local candidates. I think finally we did work for a U.S. Senate candidate before I left. And that got me into politics. But what I noticed was we'd be successful getting a candidate elected, and he ran on and had a set of beliefs that we believed. My partner and I only worked for candidates we shared their political and ideological perspective. They would get elected. We'd get them elected. They'd go to Nashville, to the state capitol, and they would end up voting for the worst legislation. And the more I studied this, I realized, well, there's nobody in Nashville showing these legislators data and facts to help them make better decisions about their votes. So I quit politics and got into public policy. And the difference is politics is about getting people elected. That's all politics is. It's about power. Politics is about power. If you don't get elected, you can't get anything done. So when the question came up during the last election, did one party cheat or the other party cheat? Oh, hell yes, they did. Now, at a scale that might have shifted the election, I sincerely doubt that. I've not seen any evidence of it. But when I was in politics, we were at a legislative candidate's headquarters. It was election night. There was a group out front in the main room watching TV and waiting for the results to be announced and, having some beers and cocktails and trying to have some fun while we're waiting. And I'm in the back office with the campaign manager. I'm the consultant. He's the campaign manager, and the phone rings. He picks it up. He says, "Oh yeah, hold on," and puts it on speakerphone so I could hear. It was a precinct chairman, an election precinct chairman, who happened to support our candidate. It was late in the evening. He said, "Do we have what do the vote totals look like?" And the campaign manager said, "It's neck and neck. They cannot declare a winner. It's just too close." So the precinct manager says, "Well, how many precincts outstanding?" He said, "About 5." Precinct manager said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Call me when the other 4 have reported and their votes are counted, and tell me how many votes we need."
Okay.
And this was in East Tennessee, which is very Republican, and was a Republican candidate, and it was the primary. So whoever won the primary was going to win the general election.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing happens all the time because politics isn't about beliefs or values, what you believe, what you hold true. It's not about ideology. Politics is about one thing and one thing only: power. If you are elected, you have some power and can accomplish what you want. Whether what you want may be to change the world, it may be to enrich yourself. But if you don't get elected, you can't do anything. Politics is purely about power, and that power only happens when you win, when you get elected. So my guys were getting elected, but they weren't getting good information, and they were voting bad in Nashville. So I moved from Knoxville back to Nashville. I was still living in Knoxville, East Tennessee, where University of Tennessee was located, which is where I went to school. Moved back to Nashville and started the Andrew Jackson Institute, which was a not-for-profit 501c3 public policy think tank. And you say, what does a think tank do, Nelson? Well, we just get paid to sit around and think all day. Well, that's not true. We would do research papers. I'd host events. I did a lot of debates, because with a debate, you get both sides to come. You get experts on both sides, and both sides get a hearing, and people get to make an educated decision about what they believe. We did a lot of debates, and then we did a lot of lobbying, but we lobbied with facts. Here's the data on this issue, and we would encourage you to vote this way because it's what the data shows. Which, by the way, Ray, has stood me in good stead when we're talking about employer-sponsored health plans. How do we know what to do? We must see the data. In this case, the claims data. So it's really the same playbook I was running back in the early 90s when I was running the Andrew Jackson Institute. And then that ran for about 4 years. And we were having some trouble raising money because Republican candidates were doing so well. Our donors were giving all of their money to candidates running for office, and didn't have any left over for policy. So I closed the Jackson Institute and ended up with another think tank called the Family Institute that worked on pro-family issues, and did that for another couple of years. And then I pissed our governor off one time too many. Now, this was the second governor.
Nelson, you pissed someone off? Really?
Hard to imagine. I survived our first governor getting pissed at me. It cost me a couple of board members. He forced some of the board members in his party off because I had some Democrats on my board, and the Democratic governor made them leave my board. But the second governor was a Republican. I just really got him mad. Again, one time too many, and he leaned on my board, and I was out. I'm looking for a job. And Ray, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but when you've been doing something for a while and then all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore, in your mind, all you can do is what you've been doing.
Right.
I couldn't do anything else. Well, there weren't any think tank jobs in Nashville. And I talked a little bit to friends in Washington, but I wasn't sure I wanted to move to Washington. And a former board member of mine ran a benefits communication and enrollment firm in voluntary benefits. And he called me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a job." And he said, "Well, come talk to me." And that's how I got into the employee benefits space, and was with that firm. And you'll remember for a long time, I was the voice for voluntary benefits. I had a column in benefits, Employee Benefit Advisor magazine. I spoke all over the country. Aflac had me speaking. I think we did about 250 broker boot camps on how to cross-sell voluntary benefits. And then Obamacare happened.
Was that when you first learned that no one knows how to cross-sell?
I learned that nobody knew how to cross-sell when I started working with brokers with the enrollment firm.
Yeah.
It was, here's how people sell voluntary benefits to the HR director. You've just finished, you just made the decision on the medical. We're going to stick with Cigna. We're going to go to Blue Cross, whatever. HR is breathing a big sigh of relief. Okay, we're done with that. And the broker says, "Hey, what do you think about offering your employees some voluntary benefits?" And the HR director, first of all, is going, "Can I just enjoy this moment of achievement, accomplishment,
right,
finishing something?" But the other thing is, and this is a great point for anybody who does sales, actually anyone who wants to persuade on any issue, if you do not give a reason for your suggestion or recommendation, the other person will make one up. Well, when HR heard, "Have you thought about offering any voluntary benefits?" No reason was given. So HR thinks about, okay, why would he be recommending that? And the easiest, shortest line to the next point, next dot, is he must just want to earn some more commission.
Yeah.
Which frankly is probably true in most cases.
Sure.
But at that point, HR goes, "Yeah, no, let's talk about that again next year." And kicks it down, nothing happens. So that was when I realized I knew how to cross-sell. And cross-selling is easy. It's just solving a problem.
100%.
It's solving another problem. So medical brokers solve the "I need to renew my healthcare" problem. But then what else can you help them do? Well, you just put in a $2,500 deductible. Do the employees have $2,500 sitting around to pay that deductible if they need to get healthcare? What if we offer them a couple of benefits that they would choose to purchase, but that would provide them with the funds to pay that deductible so they could get the care they need?
Right. And by
That's
the
a
way,
great reason.
all of the national studies show that most people don't have $600 saved for a rainy day.
Right.
So these high deductible plans that we're, putting on them, it's just too much for them to bear. They can't afford their share of the expense.
And that's why these benefits really have value. A critical illness policy that'll send them a check if they're just diagnosed, heart attack, stroke, cancer. accident plan that will send them a check if they have to have any medical procedures due to an accident, medical expenses due to an accident. I mean, so I believe in these products, but the point is nobody knew how to sell them.
Sure.
And so I was helping educate them on how to sell them. And then Obamacare came along
Yep.
and just absolutely dissolved the ground under employee benefit agencies. I describe Obamacare as this massive earthquake
Yeah.
that happened epicenter Washington, D.C., but it spread across the country. And I mean, it cut commissions in half. And you say, well, they were getting paid too much. Well, maybe or maybe not. But as a business owner, all of a sudden you're looking at your revenue dropping in half. Your bills didn't drop in half. This is a cataclysmic financial event for an agency owner and for producers who earn off the commission as well. So that's when I wrote a book called Do or Die, Reinventing Your Benefits Agency for Post-Reform Success. That led me to starting a mastermind group, of which you have been an esteemed member of our mastermind group.
Indeed.
For agency owners. And as we developed and went along in 2016, I think we started the mastermind in 2013. 2016.
When did you do that signing of the Declaration of Independence, if you will?
The Declaration of Independence from the healthcare status quo. That was July 14, 2017 in Philadelphia on the grounds of Constitution Hall.
No PR opportunity missed there.
None. We had the camera crew
that's
there.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Didn't want to miss that.
That's a statement, folks.
But that's, and by the way, Ray, I absolutely remember our conversation in Atlantic City. And you kind of laid your situation out, said, I want to do what you're talking about, healthcare benefits.
Yeah.
And
well, I tracked you down. It's one thing. I think everyone in this country is fed up, right? I mean, we're on the front lines of it, so we see it every day, and so it's top of mind for us always. But I think if you ask anyone about how they feel about healthcare, the reaction is pretty much the same. Like, are you kidding me? Just for an example, I tried to make an appointment with my primary care physician in August, and the first appointment available was January. So, forget about the cost. And, I talk about that ad nauseum with folks like you on the podcast, but just the state of healthcare in terms of getting care is a challenge. So when I heard you speaking on stage that day, it was the first time that I'd ever attended a conference. And we're living in a day and age now more than ever, even way more, it's way more intense, and you're under the magnifying glass to a much greater extent nowadays. People are walking on eggshells and afraid of who they're going to piss off and what they're going to say wrong. And you were speaking the truth about what's going on in healthcare. And that's what really got my fire stoked. And I said, because up until that time, and the voluntary world is really about building a business where people don't buy one of the policies that you mentioned for a day or a week or a month. If they have been advised properly, they understand that this is a long-term commitment. If you have a policy for a year or two and then you cancel it, the insurance company is going to make a little money and you're going to have nothing to show for it. So that's never the approach. And the thing that attracted me to voluntary, if I really want to go back, the thing that reminded me most of Aflac, and it's just because I represented Aflac at the time, but any voluntary company that pays residuals, I was in a multi-level marketing meeting back when I was in my 20s, and someone drew a circle, and then they drew 2 lines under the circle, and then they drew 2 more circles and 2 lines under each of those. And so, the whole idea is, if you get enough people to do what you do, everybody makes a bunch of money, everybody wins. And the trouble that I had with multi-level marketing, I like the model, but 2 things. One, typically, I've never really seen one that I have said there's really a value here to the end user. It's a disproportionate value to them. So that's kind of red flag number one. Red flag number two is you kind of got to get people to buy something that maybe they don't want. They're really buying into an ideology more so than they're buying into a product. And that becomes difficult, at least for me to do. And I know there are many, many people who are wildly successful at multi-level marketing. For me, it was never my thing, but that model stuck in my head. And when I got to Aflac and I saw it's not multi-level marketing, it's uni-level marketing, because as you grow a team and manage them, you earn overrides. And then if you're, in my opinion, doing right by your clients and they understand that this is a long-term value proposition, then as long as they continue to pay their premiums, you continue to get paid. So it's a long-winded way of saying that I had a pretty healthy renewal stream from the client base that I built. And when I got to you at that conference, I had started a brokerage, but I really wasn't pursuing it because I was managing a lifestyle more than I was going after it. And I said to myself, well, what the hell do I have to offer? What am I going to offer my client that's any different from Marsh or Aon or Gallagher or any one of these multi-billion-dollar juggernaut, brokerages? Because insurance, as you know, is regulated. It's not like I could, cut my price and offer them a lower rate. That doesn't work in the fully insured world. And so I said, well, what value am I really bringing them? And when I heard you on stage, a light bulb went off and I said, there is something that we could do about this. It was the first time, and I really have to credit you. Ladies and gentlemen, there would be no Broken Healthcare podcast if it weren't for Nelson Griswold. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke up your ass, Nelson. I'm saying it because, and I hope you really take pride in the fact, and I know you do, everything that I do, and really the podcast is a labor of love for me. It's am I an entrepreneur? Yes. Do I hope to monetize this one day? That would be really nice. But the God's honest truth is I'm scratching a creative itch, and I actually enjoy that shit. So everyone that listens to the sound of my voice, though, they're hearing a truth that was kind of a spark that you're not entirely responsible for it, but you played a big role in me realizing that we don't have to take this shit anymore. There is actually something that people can do. The giant insurance carriers are holding monopoly. They are holding all the cards. And I'm not vilifying them saying they're all bad, but their model is broken and they need to do something about it. And until they do, you have trained an army of insurance consultants, advisors, benefits advisors that are equipped to teach CEOs and CFOs and HR professionals who are interested in not only the P&L and the bottom line, but in providing a better healthcare experience for their employees. You're equipping them with the tools to go out there and show them what can be done. And that is your, not directly, but indirectly, your work has changed the lives of many, many people.
Well, thank you, first of all. Second, I'm very proud of the work you've done and where, I want to say, the progress you've made from being a very good voluntary broker to being a very fine next-gen healthcare advisor. I'm going to go back to something you said earlier about the insurance companies. I was talking to Richard Branson about U.S. healthcare.
Sir Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic Richard Branson.
that Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And he had asked me. I was on his island as his guest because of the work I'm doing in healthcare. It was a small group of disruptive entrepreneurs who were spending a week with him. And finally, he said, I want you to tell me about American healthcare. I don't understand it at all. I said, well, that's easily understood. So I described the misaligned incentives, the fact that if you could fix those, and we can fix those incentives, if the incentives were aligned properly, the insurance companies would do what they're supposed to do, would do the right thing, the correct thing in terms of what their clients want, the employers want. So when I finished, Richard said, this reminds me a lot of when I started Virgin Atlantic Airlines and took on British Airways. That was my competition. And he said, I created incentives for Virgin that were different than the incentives, financial incentives, that British Airways had. In other words, to compete with me, British Airways would lose money because their incentives were different. If they followed their incentives, they couldn't compete with me. I can compete with them, but they couldn't compete with me. Then he said something that is tautological is the word. It means that it's so obvious. But what he said was pretty profound. He said, look, what I've learned, Nelson, is organizations will not change their behavior until their incentives change. So, Ray, until the insurance companies are not making $2.5 billion in EBITDA profit in a quarter, United Healthcare, and they're the largest, they're the 800-pound gorilla, they will continue to do what they do as long as they're making that kind of money. It's when their revenues start to dip, they aren't going to go off but they're going to start to dip a little bit. And when their profit starts to dip, that's when their shareholders will go, do something different. This isn't working anymore. But right now, it works fine. And Ray, you've seen the share value growth of we call them the BUCAs, Blue Cross United, Cigna, Aetna. It's just an acronym. The share value, Cigna, I think, was the one lagging. They were up from 2020, I think, 2020 to 1999 to 2022. It's the last data I saw. Cigna's share value was up 1,500%. United Healthcare's their share value was up 2,600%.
Yeah.
It's a very profitable,
good investment.
Well, I tell executives, when I'm speaking to CEOs and CFOs, I tell them the real crime here isn't what United Healthcare and Blue Cross and Cigna and Aetna are doing. The real crime is if your investment advisor has not had you in BUCA stocks during this time because you missed the ride.
No doubt. We had a consultant on a case and actually brought in Craig Lack, who I met in your mastermind, as a co-consultant early on. It was one of the first meetings that I walked into where we were going to bring non-status quo strategies to a client. And this was a big radiological firm. I won't name the firm, but they're a big radiological firm in New York City. And the owner of the firm was a medical doctor, and he was advised by his brother, who was a big shot finance guy, and wealth manager type of person. He said, what should I do? And his brother said, what you should do is sell your company and invest all of your money in the BUCAs. This is right around just before Obamacare is launched. And had he done that, it would have been the best movie ever made. And so he shared the story in frustration with us, but it just goes to show you how lucrative these companies are. And you're exactly right. The system, it's not broken healthcare for them. For them, it's working just as it ought to be working. It's everybody else that is in peril.
They built the system. The insurance companies working with the big insurance brokers. The drug companies are in on this, the pharmacy benefit managers, as well as the drug manufacturers, the whole drug regime, pharmaceutical regime. And to some extent, the hospitals are part of this as well. And for them, it generally works extremely well. It's just the employers who are paying the bill. Let's never call the insurance companies the payers. They're not the payers any more than if you send me if you send me to the liquor store to buy some booze for a party, and you give me a check and you say, just sign my name on it, fill it out and sign my name on it, be fine. I'm not the payer.
Yeah.
Even though I'm signing the check, you're the payer. Well, employers are the ones who are providing the money. The insurance company may be writing the check, but it's not their money. But the employers, the employees, and you started this conversation off on such a great note. This employee benefits is about and for the employees. The employer does it because he wants to retain talent. He wants to recruit good talent. He wants to have productive employees, and he wants to take care of his people.
Yeah.
But that's not the real beneficiary. The real beneficiary is the employee who has a healthcare problem, and they can go get healthcare without bankrupting themselves. And yet we know that about half the bankruptcies in the United States are due, at least in part, to medical debt. And almost all of those people filing bankruptcy for medical debt had insurance when they got sick or hurt.
Yeah. Oh, it's absurd and it's out of control. 100 million people in medical debt, folks. 100 million. I mean, I'm not up on the latest census, but I think we're less than 400 million as a country still. That's over 25% of our population, which is insane. And the number one cause for bankruptcy continues to be medical debt. People, they these poor suckers, something happens to them. They're in a terrible, horrific accident, or lightning strikes, and they're dealt a devastating illness. And one thing leads to another, and they're trying to figure out if they should pay the premium for their health insurance or pay their mortgage bill. And that goes back to my Aflac days when I think it was 2003, 2005, maybe 2005, Elizabeth Warren published an article in the Washington Post. The title of the article was Sick and Broke. And she was talking about just that. And Dan Amos, the CEO, picked that up, and he said, this is the greatest advertisement for Aflac I've ever seen, because Aflac, of course, is about paying people cash directly so that they can cope with their regular everyday living expenses, while health insurance back in the day did a better job of addressing the medical expenses. Now it's at the point where you really need voluntary benefits just to cope with your out-of-pocket medical expenses. So we're really in a pickle. We're in a mess. And, I think, I don't know what your thoughts are about the origin of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. You're way more connected politically than I'll ever be. And as an optimist, I hate to think that it was, with malintent that the ACA came into being. I'd like to believe that President Obama at the time and all of the folks on his team, they had good intentions, but I don't know, Nelson. It just, for me, it's always about, where's the smoking gun? Follow the money. And all I could remember is back in the day when they were drafting the ACA, I remember it going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth before they finally passed it. And I feel like in some of those back and forth passes, I hate to call out attorneys, but I think attorneys and lobbyists got their hands on the bill, and they baked in stuff like the MLR and all this other shit that wasn't there to begin with. And I can't help but think that is that why we're in the mess that we're in today?
Well, so just a quick backstory on that. Obamacare, what's now known as Obamacare, actually originated in the Senate, or the House and Senate, in the legislature, not the White House. Obama actually supported single payer, and would have done away with our entire private
single payer
system.
Like Medicare for all.
Medicare for all.
Yeah.
And frankly, the next step there, because Medicare for all means that every procedure for every American who goes to the hospital or goes to a doctor is going to be reimbursed at Medicare rates, which has supposed to have a little bit of profit in it. The hospitals elsewhere, it's actually cost or below cost. But
Yeah.
The point is, without commercial insurance paying a huge profit margin to the hospitals, If they're having to survive on Medicare reimbursement rates, the hospitals will quickly turn to the government and say, we can't do this. And the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warrens of the world, who do not believe in private health care, will say, yes, we knew you couldn't. We'll take you over. And you'll see the government take over the hospitals. They'll take over the doctors. Doctors will become bureaucrats. Hospitals will become government entities, just like in the UK. By the way, the UK health system, national health system in England is imploding.
Yeah.
It is absolutely falling apart from a funding and a quality standpoint. Obamacare, what became known as Obamacare, was actually based on what became known as Romney Care. Mitt Romney, who was governor of Massachusetts, you may remember, passed a piece of legislation.
That's a schoolmate of Al Lewis's. Did you know that? Al Lewis and Mitt Romney were at Harvard together. I
did not know that.
Yeah.
I was just with Al, but I didn't know that.
The great Al Lewis Quizify, big shout out.
Yes, one of the smarter guys in our business, and extremely trivial man.
Yes.
He's an expert at trivia. He was on Jeopardy, et cetera, et cetera.
Brilliant guy.
But the point is, Romney Care, what became known as Romney Care in Massachusetts, was the precursor of what we now know as Obamacare, and it was not healthcare reform; it was insurance reform, and the goal was not to lower the cost of healthcare or control the cost of healthcare. It was to increase access to healthcare. That's exactly what Obamacare is. It's insurance reform, not healthcare reform. It doesn't address the cost of healthcare, the delivery of healthcare. It simply puts money in people's pockets, or an insurance policy in their pocket, so that they supposedly have access to care. And yet Ray Kober, who does not have an Obamacare policy, I'm assuming, could not get a meeting with his primary care provider for 6 months, 7 months. That's not access to care. But let me take it one step further. This is something I've been talking about. In fact, there is a book over my right shoulder.
Yep.
Called Life and Death Decisions in the C-Suite.
Oh, that's familiar.
That is based on this particular concept.
Yeah.
Or idea. And the idea is this. People want just two things from their health insurance. Oh, and from their health care, really. They want high quality care they can afford. That's it. Nothing fancy, nothing special. Just, I want really good health care so I get better. And I don't want to go bankrupt getting it. I want to be able to afford it. Well, we know that the status quo system has failed on the affordability, without question.
Yeah.
But we keep paying it because, well, we need health care. And at least we're getting good health care. Blue Cross only puts good doctors and safe hospitals in their network. Aetna only puts good doctors, high quality doctors and safe hospitals in their network. Well, no.
I got a bridge to sell you, Nelson.
I see it right behind you there. How much? The fact is, the networks, the insurance companies' preferred provider networks, the only thing preferred is that we prefer you go to one of the doctors in our network. They are as broad as can be. They would put every doctor and every hospital and every surgery center in their network because they want to say, we have the broadest network. Well, if you've got all the good doctors, but you have everybody, it means you also have all the bad doctors. When I say bad doctors, I don't mean they've got poor bedside manners. I mean they're dangerous. There is a doctor in Florida. In fact, the New York Post had a story about this just the other day. Doctor in Florida was operating on a man whose spleen needed to be removed. This doctor went in and removed the organ. The problem was, it wasn't the spleen, it was the man's liver.
Ugh.
And the man promptly died as a result.
Come on, man.
This doctor is obviously not a good doctor. That how in the world do you mistake a liver for a spleen?
Maybe you're drunk at the time.
Maybe he's impaired, which makes
Yeah.
him a bad doctor.
Yeah.
The point is, we know who the dangerous doctors are. There's, as you know, there's quality data
Yeah.
available. Now, the public can't get it, unfortunately, but medical management companies, insurance companies have access to this data. They don't provide it to their members. So when you get forced to go to the online directory to pick a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon or a radiologist who's going to treat your cancer, you're being forced to play Russian roulette with your life and your health. Maybe you push the button and a good doctor comes up and you pick that good doctor. Click. But maybe you get a dangerous doctor. Bang.
Right.
And the problem is you never know until it's too late.
Yeah.
And people say, well, oh, no, he was wonderful. He did my open heart surgery and he was great. Well, he doesn't kill every patient.
Right.
But he kills some of them.
Yeah.
Or they're required to go back in for a second surgery.
Yeah.
And that data is available. So I believe that the insurance company's Achilles heel, if we would expose it, if it were to get exposed, is quality. When they know who the dangerous doctors are and they won't warn you.
Yeah.
When they know who the excellent doctors are and they won't advise you, go to him.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think there needs to be a fundamental shift, and people have to start procuring healthcare the way they would anything else, in advance, in the way that the system would have us continue to procure healthcare is looking in the rearview mirror. So it's basically akin to taking your car down to the service station, throwing your keys to the mechanic, saying, I don't know, it's just not working right. I'll be back in 4 hours and I'll pick it up then, right? That's what we do with healthcare. We walk into the doctor's office, we get treated. We don't even think about what the total expense is going to be. We're just looking at maybe our copay, if we even know what a copay is, or we know that we have an insurance policy backstopping us, so we're not paying attention. And I think that's a huge problem in the system. And at least I think in your cohort, in the Next Gen Mastermind, and in similar organizations where there are advisors that don't want to take it anymore, I know they get it, and they're starting to train their clients that one of the smartest things I've ever seen, I saw an interview with Kevin O'Kane, who's the founder of J&K Consulting and Catalyze Health. And he's an old salty dog in the business that learned insurance in the 1960s. Brilliant guy, mathematician, actuary. And he said the only way to control the cost of healthcare is to manage claims prospectively. And, I thought about that for a second. And what does that mean? It means in advance, before a charge is incurred, you have to ask for the price of stuff. It's not that complicated.
Well, let me take it to a higher level.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. But here's the first question. Doctor says I need open heart surgery. Do I really need open heart surgery?
Yeah.
One doctor thinks so. By the way, that doctor doesn't get paid unless he cracks my chest.
Yeah.
Unless he cracks somebody's chest.
Sure.
Otherwise, he's making a couple $100. The big money comes when he gets in the OR and he does surgery.
Yeah.
Same with an orthopedic surgeon. If he doesn't replace a knee, he doesn't get paid. If he doesn't replace a hip, he doesn't get paid. There's a confirmation bias because of their training and because of the fact, and I'm not saying they're not, I do not believe most doctors, let me make this very clear. I do not believe most doctors go, oh gosh, let's see, payment on my Maserati is coming up at the end of the month.
God, I hope not, Nelson.
I need to do 2 surgeries. Yeah, you, sir, are a surgery. Now, let me take a look at your knee. Well, I don't believe that. Occasionally, sure. I'm certain, of course, human nature. Most doctors, absolutely not.
Right.
But they were trained to do surgery. They don't get paid unless they do surgery. There's a confirmation, but they confirm their own diagnosis. So how do you know? You get a second opinion, not from the surgeon down the hall in his practice. You get from an independent third party who doesn't have a dog in the fight. And our next gen health plans, as you know, generally require those second opinions on anything serious.
Sure.
Not getting your arm where it's cut open sutured, no, or broken bone fixed, no, but major surgery, absolutely yes. And the number of patients misdiagnosed in the United States is around 12 million every year.
Crazy.
And half of those misdiagnoses can be harmful. So half aren't, but half could be harmful. Some of them are deadly. So there's an easy filter here, and that filter is a second opinion.
Yeah.
But the insurance companies don't require it. Why not?
Good question.
Because the most expensive medical claim is one that should not have occurred. That open heart surgery, I don't care what it cost, it was way too expensive because it shouldn't have happened.
Right.
The same way, the least expensive claim is the one that does not occur. So I was talking to Tom Emmerich, who started, he was the head of benefits for Walmart a number of years ago. And he was the creator of the Centers of Excellence program. Walmart Centers of Excellence program, when he first started it, if you worked for Walmart and you needed serious heart treatment, surgery, or anything serious, you were going to go to Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, they would fly you there on their dime. They would put you up in a hotel. They would send a caregiver with you, spouse or friend. But you were going to go. Well, you didn't have to, but you were going to pay for it. If you wanted them to pay for it, you were going to go to Cleveland Clinic.
Right.
You had cancer, you were going to go to MD Anderson in Texas. If you had, I think their neurology, you had brain tumor or something, you were going to go to, I think it was Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. They had these centers of excellence around the country.
Yeah.
You didn't have a choice if you wanted them to pay for it. So I was talking to Tom a couple of years ago, and I said, how did you negotiate price for those centers of excellence? Did you use Medicare as a reference? He said, we didn't talk to them about price. We didn't discuss price. I said, well, I heard the Centers of Excellence program has saved Walmart hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, that's right. How did it save Walmart all that money without negotiating savings on the healthcare?
They got it right the first time.
He said, because when the patient is diagnosed in Podunk, Iowa, that he needs open heart surgery.
No disrespect to Podunk.
No disrespect to the doctor in Podunk, Iowa. He's going to go to Cleveland. Patients can go to Cleveland Clinic if they want Walmart to pay for it. They get there, the Cleveland Clinic doctors do their diagnosis, and they look at the patient and say, okay, we're done here. Go home. What do you mean go home? You don't need open heart surgery. Tom Emmerich said, Nelson, that was how we saved all that money. It was avoided care that wasn't necessary, wasn't needed. We never avoided care that was necessary, but we saved so many employees from having procedures done to them that they didn't need. That's where we saved the money.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, Tom Emmerich co-authored a book with Al Lewis called Cracking Health Costs. And that book goes back probably more than 10 years now.
That's right.
Great book to pick up, and just ahead of its time. But we all know that Walmart is notorious for negotiating with their vendors to squeeze the last bit of juice out of every transaction that they can. And I am sure, I've never spoken to Tom personally, but I am sure that he was under the same scrutiny as any of the top managers were at Walmart and had a directive. But the amazing thing, though, Nelson, is that in the quest for getting it right and quality, which we know to be true, it's really counterintuitive, folks. But in healthcare, price and value are, they're disproportionately, it's not the way it works in everything else that we think about. It's the highest quality is almost always the lowest cost in healthcare. And Tom knew that, and look at his outcomes, saving hundreds of, I'm sure it's in the billions at this point, the savings.
But this goes to the quality, not the price of care, but whether you're getting the care you need. And not only that, but when you go to high quality doctors, they are high quality for a number of reasons. One, they were trained well, they learned, they were probably towards the top of their class in medical school, but they also do that procedure a lot. So a doctor who does open heart surgeries 4 times a week or 10 times a week versus the surgeon who does open heart surgery 3 times a year is going to take longer. I actually was told a story. There was a nurse who mentioned that there was a surgeon in her hospital who did surgery with a textbook open on a table next to him. Okay. This is not an experienced surgeon.
Yeah.
They take longer. They make mistakes. You've got to come back and get opened up again and have another surgery to fix their mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not, that's unhealthy in so many ways. Not to mention your plan pays twice now.
Yeah.
For the first surgery, for the surgery to fix the first surgery. These are the kinds of issues that the insurance companies could eliminate by steering their members to higher quality care, by doing second opinions. They choose to do none of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think folks lose sight of the fact that it's not only the patient that's being harmed, it's everybody that's connected to that patient. It's particularly their family members. If you've ever been close to someone that goes through something like this, you're on the ride with them. They may be experiencing the pain and physical suffering, but it's a burden for the entire family unit. And I think about this great country that we live in and the laws that we have, and the bullshit that people get incarcerated for. We got to start going after some of these people in the healthcare space, in Congress, who are culpable because their actions are causing harm. And I think until we get to a place where there's accountability and people's feet are being held to the fire, we're going to continue to see this. We talk about, I love saving organizations tons of money. What gives me far more gratification is being able to deliver healthcare for free to a member of their organization that really needs it. That's what's truly gratifying. But it's the pain and suffering is not limited to the patient. And some of the stuff we talk about, it just really makes my blood boil.
Well, in the story of the patient whose liver was removed instead of his spleen, his widow was quoted. It affected her tremendously. And, the reality is the peace of mind that comes from knowing your doctor is a good doctor in terms of outcomes. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about bedside manner or personality. We're talking about when he goes in to do a procedure, does he do it right?
Yeah.
And does the patient come out fixed? A good friend of mine just went through open heart surgery, had all 4 tubes replaced in his heart. His surgeon, and we knew this because we looked him up. We had one of our medical management company friends check him. He was off the charts, like 98.8 scope, meaning his outcomes were better than 98.8% of other heart surgeons in the United States. But when my friend Rob was getting ready to go into surgery, the doctor looked at him and said, "Rob, I've done 40,000 of these. You can relax."
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of surgeries. And I think maybe it was 44,000, maybe it was 4,400. Maybe that's probably right. 40,000 is a lot. 4,400 open heart surgeries, you can relax. And he did an amazing job. In fact, the
I would have
incision,
said I don't give a shit about that. I want 4401 to be
that's
to be
right.
the one.
I've done this successfully 44,001 times. That's an excellent point. But that's what's at stake here. Is not just the peace of mind going in. Well, I think my doctor's excellent.
Yeah.
It's what do you come out with? What do you come out of that OR with? You come out in good condition, or are there problems? I'll give you a quick story. Another quick story. A next gen advisor had a good friend who was going in for pretty serious surgery. He took the name of the doctor and ran it past one of our medical management colleagues, and they gave back the quality score. It was bad. He told his friend, "Look, I'm not trying to make trouble, but you don't want this doctor. They're better here. 3 other doctors that are off the charts good." He goes, I'm so busy. I don't have time to go pick another doctor. I'm just going to stick with my guy." He did. He had a surgery. He was back in the next day for another surgery because he had 5 bleeds,
Oh,
internal bleeds
oh,
in 5 different locations
jeez.
because the doctor was not a good doctor. He was not a good surgeon.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't guessing. We don't think he's this is based on the data the doctor reports to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in order to be reimbursed for Medicare.
Yeah.
And Medicaid patients. So this is the doctor. We're using the doctor's own results that he or she have reported to the to the government. So I just want to emphasize this point about quality because we get focused on price because price is what we know. You can see the price. That's expensive.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with $16,000. The patient says. By the way, I want to mention. And I was looking, I've got a copy of it here somewhere, but I'm going to have to look for it, and that'll be disruptive. There's a book by a gentleman who recently passed away tragically, Marshall Allen.
Marshall Allen, yeah.
Who was a reporter for ProPublica.
Never pay the first bill.
Never pay the first bill. If you are listening to this podcast and you or anyone you know has a serious procedures, serious surgery or hospital stay, anything where the bill is run up, Never Pay the First Bill is the name of the book. It's on Amazon.
Terrific.
And it has saved patients hundreds, probably by now millions of dollars because it teaches you how to look for errors, how to look for mistakes. I won't say they're an error, but they are wrong. Double billing happens a lot. But there are lots of ways hospitals run the tab up on you incorrectly and illegally. I don't say illegally. I don't know about illegal, but wrongly. And you can fix that. The point is we focus on money because it's so obvious and we don't understand the rest of it. But I'm here to tell you, ask for a second opinion. If you have a doctor giving you a serious diagnosis and giving you a serious prescription, and I mean that about drugs too.
Yeah.
Get a second opinion. Well,
it's the old adage, as old as carpentry: measure twice, cut once. It's just common sense, right? It's, what does everything, look like to a hammer, a nail? What does everything look like to a back surgery, right? So you really have to be mindful. And some of these surgeries have long-term consequences that are not reversible. It's a shame, but people end up never being the same again, never being able to come back, to the person that they were before. And so you really have to think hard before going down that road, particularly with, some of the more serious surgeries, medical device implants, another thing like, be mindful. Is this something that's new? Because the newest isn't necessarily the best. Is it out there? Has it been, is it tried and true? I know personally, if I needed a joint replacement and they were going to put an implant in, a medical device, I would be much more likely to go with something that's been working for years and years, as opposed to the sexy new shiny new object. So you really have to, look hard at that stuff. And I think double checking and having, if you are aligned with a health advisor and a health plan that has medical management built in, and you can gain insight into the surgeon, the facility. What Nelson, just spoke about is dead nuts on. It's you don't want a surgeon that's got a score of 12 out of 100 as opposed to one that's got a score of 98 out of 100. There's a reason for it. And, does it mean that the one that scores 12 out of 100 isn't going to get it right every once in a while? Well, every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds a nut. Is that the guy you want? So you gotta really think about that stuff.
Real quick on the idea of the latest and greatest. I'll give a shout out here to Deb Alt, Nurse Deb at Alt International Medical Management, which is inarguably the best medical utilization management company in the country. But Deb will tell you that a lot of doctors want to use a robot to take out a gallbladder. And AIM will not approve it when the pre-certification comes around. And the reason is not because the robot is more expensive. It's because robotic surgery to remove gallbladder poses a risk of death 150 times greater than not using laparoscopic surgery to remove the gallbladder. So and by the way, it's not the robot
it's the
that's
training.
the problem. It's the operator. The surgeon does not have enough experience. They don't do it enough to be good at it, and they end up causing harm. And the Hippocratic Oath, if you remember, Ray, is first do no harm. But doctors are under tremendous pressure from the hospital. Use our $1 million robot so we can bill for it. We got to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, it takes a lot of reps for surgeons to become proficient at that stuff for certain procedures. And this is really where a medical management authority comes in. For certain procedures, it's precisely what you want, because the precision is it just surpasses that of a human surgeon. For other surgeries, it's the last thing that you want, as Nelson mentioned. But how does the average person know that? The answer is the average person doesn't know that.
In the hands of a doctor, that argument, we need to use the robot to remove your gallbladder. Okay. And now it sounds like I'm at risk if I don't use the robot.
Right.
But that's just not the case.
No. And that's the other problem, I think. It's another kind of adage that's as old as the age of time. People just blindly trust and put their faith in their physicians and their doctors. Whatever their doctor says has got to be right, because they're, after all, a doctor. And that's certainly not taking anything away from doctors and MDs who've dedicated themselves, as I think all of them are in it for the right reasons. But the truth is that they're human beings. Money is part of their business, and it is a driver for many of them, not all of them. But what is your doctor? What did they get involved in medicine for? Did it change over time? I don't know. They're people just like you and me, Nelson. Do they, are they addicted to some substance, either alcohol or drugs? Do they have a gambling addiction? Do they have debts that they have to pay off? Believe it or not, folks, this fits the bill for some doctors and surgeons out there.
There
And
was a doctor I did some research. I was speaking in Lexington, and I was looking for a Lexington doctor to use as an example. I couldn't find one. I found a Louisville, Kentucky doctor.
yeah.
I was searching the medical board records, the records of the medical board that hear cases about doctors who have issues. And there was a Louisville, Kentucky doctor. He was a heart surgeon. He was reported to the head of the hospital by the director of the catheterization lab, because he was attempting to run the catheterization tube up this patient's vein artery with tremors in his hands. Well, it turns out he was, in fact, and how he was sent to treatment, was declared an alcoholic. And he was sent home, and the board allowed him to keep his license and continue practicing, but it was a restricted license. And I thought, well, that makes sense. He can still earn a living, but he can't do surgery, or he can't do catheterizations, perhaps. And then I discovered, oh no, a limited restricted license, medical license, doesn't mean you can't do anything. It simply means you have to pee in a cup every 6 weeks.
Oh, Jesus.
So you pee in the cup on Thursday, and Friday you go on a bender.
Oh, great.
And you operate on Monday. Right? So what kind of protection is that? And I understand this is how doctors make a living.
Yeah.
But at what cost, at what risk
Right.
to the patient?
Right.
So the system, the medical system is problematic as well. At the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, the cadet that graduates last in his class is known as the GOAT. Do you know what the medical student who graduates last in his class at Yale Medical School is called?
Doctor.
Exactly right. He's called doctor.
Right.
Right.
And GOAT, by the way, is not greatest of all time, I'm guessing.
No, it is not. It is not.
Right.
Actually, the mascot, if I'm not mistaken, the mascot of of West Point is a goat.
Yeah.
So it's probably not a good thing.
Gotcha.
But that's true. And I was doing some research in medical journals, and I came across an article in one of the medical journals. And the title was amusing to me. 50% of all doctors are below average. Yes, that would be true.
Right.
And the point of the article was, what if people knew?
Right.
Would anyone want to go to a below average doctor? The answer is probably no. But I certainly don't want to go to somebody in the bottom 10%.
Yeah.
In
No
fact,
doubt.
they should probably be made to quit or go back and get more training or something. But so that's the whole quality issue
Yeah.
is something that people need to be aware of, because no one else is going to be aware of it for you unless you are in a next-gen style health plan.
Right. And then, getting back to your point with Marshall Allen, may he rest in peace, and he was a relatively young man in his early 50s.
45.
Oh, no. He was older than that, wasn't he?
Nope, don't believe so.
45.
I think he was 45. Heart attack.
At any rate, 45, 52, way too young to no longer be with us. And he was a champion for the underdog. He, heard his story and, doesn't like bullies. And, there's a lot of bullying going on when it comes to debt collection in the medical space. And he fought for the little guy. And so that is a great give, Nelson, to have people go and pick up a copy of Marshall Allen's book, Never Pay the First Bill, because it gives you a roadmap, folks, for what you could do to take matters into your own hands and change things. In fact, Marshall was the editor for Marty McCary, Dr. Marty McCary's new book, Blind Spots, and I was able to get my hands on an advanced copy of that book. And another compelling, one of the greatest contemporary books, folks, in my opinion, depicting what's going on in the healthcare system, is The Price We Pay by Dr. McCary. And this is a follow-up for his next book, Blind Spots. And he talks about stuff that physicians to this day continue to take at face value, but now there's science that completely disproves what was common knowledge for physicians, such as pediatricians for years were told, because of a study that was conducted, and this is bad science, that you should not give peanuts or nuts to children under the age of 3 years old. Long story short, it caused a spike in peanut allergies, an epidemic, if you will, and it was all rooted in bad science. And now that has completely been dispelled. Yet there are still pediatricians that are adhering to this because they're either, they're burying their heads in the sand, they're not looking at the science, or I don't know what their motivation would be. But there are doctors out there that are kind of stuck in their ways, and as a doctor, you kind of have to be up on all of the latest. You don't get to be a doctor and say, oh, my training is over. It doesn't work that way. You have to be up on the latest and the greatest. And so that's one example. Another example is hormone replacement therapy, HRT, estrogen. So in the early 2000s, doctors came out and there was a study out there that said that there was a correlation between women taking estrogen and breast cancer. And oh my God, the number of doctors that stopped prescribing estrogen was everywhere. Because why? Fear was the prevailing thought. And oh my God, this causes breast cancer. I can't take estrogen. And estrogen provides a huge quality of life for women going through menopause. It gives them their life back. There are numerous health benefits to women taking estrogen at that time in their life. And this bad science caused it deprived millions and millions of our wives, of our moms, of our sisters with the benefit of estrogen. And it just, story after story is like there throughout that book. I highly encourage it. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, but it is a fantastic read. And for those who think, hey, my doctor's got it right, your doctor is human, folks. And your doctor may indeed have it right, but is there anything wrong with double checking? Just double check, measure twice.
I love your reminding us of the carpentry rule: measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
How remarkably applicable to surgery. Measure twice, cut once. So I think that's great. That is great advice as well.
Yeah.
Marshall Allen was 52. I stand corrected.
I thought so. Okay. So,
You're right.
But either way, I mean, young man and
in great condition too. He was a runner.
Yeah.
And has a heart attack and drops dead.
Yeah. Well, it was a great loss for our community. I know that he touched a lot of lives, and he was a good man through and through. His motivations were pure, I believe. And that resonates with people. You don't need to know someone super well to get a sense of who they are and what motivates them. And my sense of Marshall Allen was he really cared about people. And it takes someone of character and conviction to go up against the status quo in healthcare, because there are 4.5 trillion reasons why we are where we are. And that's one of my fears, Nelson. It's if you look at our movement and you look at, I do believe that we're making progress, and I know that we're making a difference. But I think our entire movement represents about 3% of the healthcare economy. So it's a drop in the bucket. And I guess my question for you as we head towards wrapping this is, what do you think is to come? We're in an election year. Regardless of who gets into office, there are many, many challenges. Healthcare is certainly one of them. Where do you think we're going from here? And what do you think the future looks like for our grandchildren?
Well, I know what I know the future we don't want, because I've seen it in the research I did in the 90s when Hillary Care was on the table. I had a bunch of research done. I did a little myself on what single payer or government run healthcare looks like in other countries. And it's nothing that we want. For one thing, there's almost no innovation. When you take the profit motive out of medicine, out of healthcare, nobody innovates.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to. There's no money in it.
Yeah.
There might be some government grants, but you would never see the level of innovation that you see in the United States, in particular, around medical devices, medical equipment, medications, et cetera.
I just heard, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but I just heard Dr. Keith Smith speak, and Dr. Smith is featured in It's Not Personal, It's Just Healthcare, a documentary that also features our distinguished guest, Mr. Griswold. And I'm a producer on that, along with a bunch of my mastermind brothers and sisters. And Dr. Smith runs a little business called the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, where he had an epiphany, and he said, you know what, we're going to publish our prices, our all-in bundle prices for surgery on our website. And Nelson, he said he started doing that. And you know what happened? Canadians started showing up on his doorstep. So it just, what you said just reminded me of that, and I had a laugh. I was like, look at this. So you have Canadians, socialized medicine, making their way to Surgery Center of Oklahoma.
Well, this was back when I was in public policy. So this was 20 years ago or so, or maybe more. But I doubt it's changed. I doubt the ratio has changed. At the time, there was one county in Florida that had more MRI machines in that county than the entire country of Canada. Now, it's Florida, a lot of old people needing MRI machines, and
I've fallen, but I can't get up.
That's right. So send me to get an image. But that goes to show, this is why Canadians constantly, you're in New York, they constantly come across the New York border, they come across the Detroit border, they come across the Washington state border, or Washington state border, to get care. In fact, the Supreme Court of Canada several years ago ruled that the Canadian healthcare system had to pay for care that Canadians got out of the country, because the system had promised, when it was instituted, to provide care that was speedy, that you could get care quickly. And they said waiting 6 weeks to get a scan of your tumor, your cancerous tumor, is not quick. So the point is, I know what I don't want it to look like. Now, do I want the American system to be better? That's what we're working on. Does it need to be reformed? Yes, absolutely, it does. My concern is we're not moving fast enough. That there is a tipping point, I believe. There's the story of the 100th monkey. And this was sociologists were studying a tribe of monkeys living on a small Pacific island. It was just the monkeys on the island. And so it made for a very, very pristine study, because there was nothing to interfere with the monkeys. And they were watching the monkeys, and monkeys ate these fruit, but they had to peel the fruit. And when they would peel the fruit, it would almost always pop out of their hands, drop on the ground. The ground was sandy. So they pick the fruit up, they start to eat it, and they spitting out the sand. Spitting out the sand, take a bite, spit out the sand. One day, they observed a young monkey was peeling his fruit at the side of a creek. The fruit fell into the sand, but when he picked it up, it squirted out of his hand and fell in the water. He pulls it out of the water, starts to eat it, and then realizes there's no sand on it. So the next time, he drops it in the sand, then puts it in the water. Right? He didn't think to just drop it in the water. But the point is, he learned to do this. Well, he showed some of his family members
Yeah.
and some friends, and they started it. But there were hundreds and hundreds and thousands of monkeys on this island. These were 4, 5, 6, 7 monkeys were washing the fruit. And then a few more, and then a few more. And then around about the number 100, it wasn't exactly, of course, another monkey learned to wash the fruit. And almost immediately, every monkey on the island started washing the fruit.
Mass adoption. Yeah, that's wild.
Without any reason, no explanation. What was really fascinating is they found another group of sociologists studying the same type of monkeys on another island where there was no way the monkeys could get over there. They were washing their fruit too.
Wow.
Mass adoption. Fascinating. But the idea of the 100th monkey, is one of your clients going to be that 100th monkey that adopts a next gen style plan, and the next thing you know, every CEO in the country is going, I need that. But can we get there fast enough before the American public, you alluded to this earlier, you stated, we're upset about healthcare. Americans are not happy about the cost of their care. If they thought about it, they wouldn't be happy about the quality. Do they? And when Americans get mad, I think I heard Marshall Allen say this when I think he was speaking to a mastermind at a mastermind summit, one of our mastermind groups. In fact, I was the first person in the industry to bring Marshall in to speak in Dallas in 2022, I think.
Name dropper. You dropped your own name.
Yeah. But I'm very proud of that because Marshall was so impactful, and it was I was
amazing,
so delighted
dude.
to know him. But the point is, he made the point that when Americans get mad, things happen. And if Americans get mad enough, and by the way, American businesses, and you're hearing this, are saying, we need help. We need relief.
Yeah.
Right? This, we can't afford the ever increasing, ever escalating cost of healthcare. Can we affect enough change before the government is, and Americans have, this is what saddens me, Americans have a false binary choice in their mind. Private healthcare system, which I think is what we have now, a free market healthcare, it's not free market, or government controlled. Well, this isn't working, so we may have to turn to the government when there is in fact a third way, which is what we're doing, which is simply aligning incentives and letting the private healthcare system work the way it should. If we can get there before the government is empowered to act, then I think we have a good chance. The great thing about it, Ray, and you saw this in the documentary, is there's incredible evidence to support what we're doing.
Yeah.
First of all, it works. But second, we're correcting errors that are easily seen if people will look for them, if they're pointed out to people.
Yeah.
Wait, the insurance companies make more money when healthcare costs go up? Yes. And here's why. Medical loss ratio, their profit margin is capped. So the only way they can make more profit is to increase top line revenue. Well, what's revenue? Well, premium to an employer is revenue to the insurance company. How do they raise revenue? Well, healthcare costs have gone up again, so we need to raise your premium and our revenue. So when CEOs and CFOs understand that, they go, whoa.
Yeah.
When they understand brokers are making commission, getting paid a percentage of the premium they're paying the insurance company, and the insurance company is writing that check to the broker, that the broker works for the insurance company, not for the employer, and has no incentive whatsoever, just the opposite, to reduce the cost of healthcare and the cost of premium.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of you talking to you personally. I'm charging this, talk to more executives.
Yep.
But it's more of you talking to more executives. So it's really a recruiting challenge for me and those of us who are leading the movement, and a challenge for you when you talk to your colleagues, challenge them. Why do they keep doing it the old way? This is better.
100%. Well, so Marshall Allen's also the first guy that I heard at one of your events make a statement, and he said, it might not have been your event, come to think of it, but he said that we're in a healthcare bubble, and those are his words. He's the first guy that I ever heard put it that way. And as soon as those words fell, I said, he is right. We are in a healthcare bubble. And the question is, when is that bubble going to burst? And what side of the bubble are you going to be on? and so I think what you do day in and day out is help train and coach advisors coming into the industry, or advisors who've been just status quo healthcare advisors. You're showing them a new path and a new way. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you're entrepreneurial. You're a multiple best-selling author. I'm not sure if you're working on a new book or you have any projects that you want to let the audience know about. But your primary thing in your day job is coaching agency owners on how to do it differently, how to do it better, and how to succeed not only for them and their stakeholders, but for the clients that they serve. So how do people find you, and what would you like to say about that?
Well, nextgenbenefits.com is our website if you're an advisor. If you're an employer, nextgenbenefits.network is our Next Gen Benefits Network website, which is employer facing. And you can learn more about what we do there. Nextgenbenefits.com is for healthcare brokers who want to become Next Gen advisors and do things differently and differentiate. I will mention for the advisors, the brokers who are listening, I have a new program on differentiation of your agency and of your practice. And it's an in-person live event at your agency. It's a day to a day and a half, putting the final touches on it, but it'll be at your agency with your producers to show them multiple ways to differentiate so that you can win more business by doing the right things. But just knowing how to do the right things won't win you more business. You've got to know how to go talk to the C-suite, how to message the C-suite, how to get into the C-suite, and other aspects of the sales process. It's a sales business. Being able to do a next gen plan is fine, but you got to get somebody's permission to do it in their business anyway. And then in January, our Ascend conference is moving to July next year for the first time ever. It's our 10th annual Ascend conference. We're going to be in Salt Lake. In fact, this is the first announcement.
Oh, wow.
Right now, right here. We're going to be in Salt Lake City, July 7th through 10th. I'm really excited about that. I've already got some great programming lined up. Winston Churchill is going to be speaking. And while it may not be the original Winston Churchill, the gentleman who plays Winston Churchill is a trained actor. And this is he doesn't do other thing. He is Winston Churchill. He was in England. He met the Churchill family and they have anointed him. Winston Churchill's great-great-great-grandson said, you don't portray our great-great-grandfather. You are our great-great-grandfather.
Wow. Looking forward to that. He's one of the...
And he speaks about leadership and rising to challenges, all of which Churchill did, but he does it as Sir Winston Churchill. He's fabulous.
He's one of my favorite historical figures of all time. Him and Teddy Roosevelt, I think, are neck
carry
and neck,
a big
one
stick.
or two.
Speak softly. Carry a big stick.
Yeah, baby.
But in January, we're going to I'm hosting a one-day Ultimate Sales Kickoff Summit. And it is about next-gen strategies, but how to sell them, how to make the case to the decision makers, how to get in to see the decision makers. And we're going to be doing that sometime in January. And it's going to be a $200 ticket, but because it's our 10th Ascend anniversary, I'm waiving that. So it will be free to attend. There will be no charge. I want as many people as possible to get there and to get your year kicked off properly.
Oh, wow.
And you know the importance of kickoffs. I know you did them back
Sure.
in your Aflac days.
Oh, yeah.
You've got 12 months ahead of you, and you want to get going and go right. So our ultimate sales kickoff summit will be sometime in January. We're nailing down that detail right now.
Amazing. And you know, folks, it's not about, how could I put this? It really is about getting your mind right, to use a Tony Horton P90X term for any of you crazies that did P90X back in the day like I did. You know, get your mind right. It really is about that. And what you'll learn at these events is what you should be thinking about when you meet with an employer. If you're going in there and you're still in the practice of spreadsheeting one bad option after the next, then the best that you can come up with is an HSA, high deductible plan strategy. I have news for you. Your days are numbered. You're going to get smoked by your competition, because that's the business side of me talking. On the personal human side, you're doing a disservice not only to yourself, but to your clients. And so you got to think bigger. And for those employers that are listening, if that's what your current broker is coming to you with, you might at the very least think about having a meeting with one of Nelson's next gen advisors. And there's an army of them. And, part of the reason that I do this, you might say, well, that's crazy, Ray. Why don't you tell them to come to you? It's not about me. Broken Healthcare is about the system. In fact, I'm interviewing Mike Hill on, I think, the day after tomorrow. So I've already interviewed a number of Nelson's people, prodigies, if you will, and Mike Hill is amongst them. If I truly am going to make a difference on this blue spinning ball, it can't be about me. And the podcast gives me a megaphone, and it gives me a platform to let everyone know that whether you choose to work with Benefixa or you choose to work with any of the other great advisors that Nelson and his team have groomed, you owe it to yourself and your business. In fact, you have a fiduciary obligation now under the CAA to see what else is out there to make sure that your plan dollars are being spent wisely. And Nelson, I want to thank you again for really being a leader and a change agent in an industry that so desperately needs change. Truly, your work is remarkable, and keep up the good work, my friend.
Well, you are a shining example of what happens when somebody applies the strategies and techniques that I teach. So thank you. It's been fun watching you achieve and grow and have such success. Thanks for having me on. It's been fantastic. I've enjoyed the conversation, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, sir. Until next time, folks, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
So that's it for today's episode of Broken Healthcare. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show, and join us on the next episode.